Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Psalm, the second chapter, or the book of Psalms, the second chapter. So it says here, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord Yahweh and against his anointed, saying. Now, this, prophetically is dealing with, as it was quoted here, you can see the account going into the time of the Acts, right? And this was when you had, or in reference to the wicked scribes and Pharisees, the chief high priest and the, Herodians, right? Herod and the Romans, that when it says here, why why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing, right? That was them plotting against Yahweh Shai. And it tells you that in the book of Acts, the 4th chapter, which I'll pull up in a second. And then it says here, the kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together. So this was, the Herod, Pilate, the Romans, right, and the wicked Israelites conspiring together to come against Yahweh Shai, right, against the Lord and against his anointed. They came against the Lord because they came against Yahweh Shai, and Yahweh Shai said that. He told them, right, if you knew my father, or if you knew my father, you would know me. And if you knew who I was, you would know my father. But instead, they conspired to come against Yahweh Shai and to put him to death. But here you can see it's mentioned as a vain thing because it was futile, right? They were only doing what prophecy said that they would have to do anyway. And Peter says that. So let's go real quick to the book of Acts, chapter 4, and we'll start at 25. Okay, maybe I'll start at 21. So this is after Peter and John, when they were going to go into the temple to pray, they saw the man that was lame, and then they healed him, right? Peter healed him. And so when news of this got out, the wicked scribes and Pharisees, the chief priests, they came and tried to threaten the apostles concerning them performing this miracle in the name of Yahweh Shai. So this is Acts 4 and 21. So when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them because of the people. For all men glorified God for what was done. For the man was above 40 years old, on whom this miracle of healing was shewed, right? The one that was lame, who was able to now walk. And being let go, they went to their own company and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said unto them. And when they had heard that, they lifted up their voice to God with one accord. So when, Peter and those that were with him came back and told the rest of the believers what had happened, they all lifted up their voice to God with one accord and said, Lord, thou art God, which has made heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, or all that in them is, who by the mouth of thy servant David hast said, why did the heathen rage and and the people imagine vain things? The kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his anointed. For of a truth against thy holy child Yahweh Shai, whom thou hast anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate, with the Gentiles, which were the Romans, and the people of Israel were gathered together, right? That was the heathen raging and the people, right? The people of Israel imagining a vain thing, right? Gathering together for to do whatsoever thy hand and thy counsel determined before to be done. You see, so they gathering together to come against the Lord, it was really vain because it was in their thinking of stopping the Lord, they were really just fulfilling what the Lord had counseled or determined from the very beginning to happen or to come to pass. All right, so going back to the book of Psalms, chapter 2, continuing in verse 3, it says here, so they conspired, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. Right? This is the counsel they took together against the Lord and against his anointed. And what that means of breaking his bands asunder and casting away their cords from us is not wanting to be subject unto the will of the Lord. And, for those wicked Israelites, they didn't even, because their minds were blocked, right? They still had that veil over their minds, that they weren't able to see that this was the will of the Lord, that the Lord sent Yahushua, him being the one to come, right? The Messiah. They didn't see that, so whether they realized it or not, they were fighting against the Lord. In fact, who was it? Gamaliel that said that. He told them, right? Lest haply ye be found to fight against God. So casting away the cords from of us, right? Or breaking the bands, which is like trying to break free from the control of one. So looking at this in the NLT, it says, let us break their chains, they cry, and free ourselves from slavery to God. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Right, because it's futile, right? Ultimately, no matter what they try, you can't, break free from the control of the Lord. And number two, you cannot overthrow prophecy. What's written is going to happen, and what the Lord has determined, that is what's going to stand. The Lord shall have them in derision. Let's go into that word derision. It says to mock, to deride, right? So when the time of their because all their efforts they're trying, they're gonna end up looking stupid at the end of the day, which they did. Because what ended up happening, the same Yahushua they mocked was raised up, and now these miracles were being performed in his name, and they knew they knew that they had messed up. Okay, that's why when Stephen said what he said, going back to the book of Acts, the 7th chapter, they were cut to the heart. But what did they do instead? They hardened their hearts some more, and then they put him to death. Verse 5, then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and the speaking is more of a rebuke. He's going to rebuke them in his wrath. And what is that going to be? By way of bringing judgment. And vex them in his sore displeasure. Let's go into that word vex. To disturb, to alarm, to terrify, to be afraid, to be nervous, to dismay. That's what the Lord is going to do, right? By way of judgment. And Yahushua said that, right? You're going to see when you see the Son of Man coming back with great power, and in the clouds. So it says here, and vex them in his sore displeasure. When somebody's angry, it's one thing when somebody's speaking, right? Normally. But when they're very, very angry and you can see it, like they're blatantly pissed off, you want to be careful what you say, because it's through the anger that somebody has that they might go from words to physical actions very quickly. So when you rebuke somebody in your wrath, or you vex them in your hot displeasure, it's more than just words. Because the words of the Lord are more than just words, right? The words of the Lord, they come to pass. The Lord's words are really events. Verse 6, I have set my king upon my holy hill of Zion, right? And ultimately, who is the ultimate king that the Lord has set up? It's Yahushua. Now, at this time, you had David, which the Lord had, set up over Israel, but the ultimate king that will sit on the throne of David is Yahushua, and under him is going to be King David, and then the rest of the governing body. Verse 7, I will declare the decree. The Lord Yahweh hath said unto me, thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Now, there are some verses in here as we continue to go through the book of Psalms that where David is speaking in the spirit, all right, or he's singing, or, when he writes these Psalms, it's in the spirit. So there are Psalms in here where though he's saying it, it's not really talking about him. One example is verse 7, right, leading into verse 8. So in verse 7, as he says, I would declare the decree that was given by who? The Lord, right? The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This is in reference to Yahushai, the Messiah. This day have I begotten thee. And how do we know that? When you cross-reference this, the Apostle Paul made mention of this, right? He referenced this actually. I believe it's in the book of Hebrews. Yeah, the book of Hebrews, the first chapter. Let's get that real quick. Hebrews 1 and 5. And in here, in the first chapter here, the Apostle Paul was showing, right, the divinity and the, you know, the separation of the Yahushai from the rest of the angels. He wasn't just a regular angel. He was a regular angel. He was you know, the only begotten of the Father. So as he said, that's why you see him making that comparison, like the Lord said this to Yahushai. He never said this to anybody else, no other angel. The other angels were ministers, they were servants, right? The Lord, the Most High made them as servants. Yahushai is made as a son. Right, so verse 5, for unto which of the angels said he at any time, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee? Unto none other than Yahushai. And again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. So what was Paul quoting here? He was quoting the Psalm of David, right? Psalm 2 and 7. Okay. So verse 8, ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. And the heathen, which are these other nations, are, as this is really first in application to Yahushai, and by extension to us as well. And the Lord told us that. I'll get that in a second in the book of Revelation, but the Lord is already given, right? Remember, everything has been given into the power of Yahushai. So the heathen for thine inheritance, meaning that you're going to own them, right? They're going to be yours. They're going to belong to you like an inheritance that's actually passed down as servants. And the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. So really the entirety of the earth belongs to Yahushai. And not just the earth, but everything that the Lord has created, you know, with the exception of the Most High. So let's go real quick to the book of Revelation. And I believe it's the second chapter. And we can start at the 26th verse. So this is what Yahushai said, right? And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. So when you read here in Psalms 2 and 8, remember it mentions to give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, which are the nations. And when you go to verse 9, it says, thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. That rod is a scepter. So you're going to rule over them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. And that's like ruling with an iron fist and disciplining when necessary. So this was a decree, right, and a blessing that was given to Yahushai. But notice what he says here in Revelation 2 and 26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. You see that? That privilege was given to Yahushai of his Father. But those that overcome, he's going to extend that to them as well. Okay, so that's why this is first an application to Yahushai, but by extension to the joint heirs with Yahushai. Verse 10, be wise, therefore, O ye kings, the instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord Yahweh with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry. Kiss meaning to reverence, right, or to submit to. And the Son here is Yahushai. Lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way. Because what's going to happen to those that would not submit to Yahushai? They're going to be destroyed. Those that don't submit to him now are not doing his will. And when he comes back, he's going to handle them, right? He's going to destroy them. And when it says, when his wrath is kindled but a little. So if but a little of his wrath is going to cause you to perish, you should know better than to try and rebel against the Son, because all power has been given to him. Don't forget that. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. And why is that? Because when the time of judgment comes, they're going to be taken care of. And even prior to that. So there's the deliverance, of their souls. And there's also the blessings that come with that deliverance. But it comes to those that put their trust in him and that keep his ways and his instructions, right? The things the Lord has commanded us to do, those that keep them and trust in him and have faith in him, they're going to be blessed. And that brings us to the end of the book of Psalms, the 2nd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachah Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.